How's everyone today? It's no longer morning, it's now afternoon. Everyone good? Okay, great. So, content, the consumer in the social age. As Mark said, everything has changed because of the internet, of digital, and now again with social. Anybody know what this is? It's not a trick question, just coffee. Yes, okay. And what is this? Shaded in white. Vietnam, yes. Why in the world would I start a conversation with coffee in Vietnam? Vietnam is the world's second largest producer of coffee, which you might or might not know, and is interesting only so far. What Vietnam did was fascinating, and I think it's what consumers are doing today. Coffee is a commodity, right? So Vietnam would grow the beans, they would pick them, and they would send them off onto the commodity market, and it would rise and fall through basically no doing of their own. So Vietnam decided to go up the value chain. They said, we are going to do everything from beginning to end, from growing to selling, roasting, packaging, everything in the middle. And what they were able to do is raise the price. They were able to get more money for their product, their second or third largest export. And this is exactly what is happening to consumers today in the social age. They're going up the value chain. Today, that means that EQ, your emotional quotient, is more important than your IQ, your intelligence quotient. And for me, thank goodness, because my IQ was never that high. 40,000 years ago in Spain, we started doing shareable social content. It was this. How do you kill a buffalo, right? Images, cave paintings depicting the way that things were. Now, to see this content, you actually had to be there, and someone had to show it to you. And a number of years later, I think of 1439 roughly, our friend Gutenberg developed this thing, the printing press, which democratized and changed everything in the way that people were able to learn, to read, to be educated, on down the line. And that was pretty much standard for a very long time until, the 1950s. It's a lovely family. The broadcast era, the broadcast model came to be. When whatever was on one of the three stations that everyone would gather around, that's what was news. That's what people talked about. That's when and where and how the consumer got information. Today, it's a little bit different. 80% of American millennials, 18 to 34-year-olds, sleep with their phone on their nightstand. How many of you do that? Just by a show of hands. Keep your hands up if it's your alarm clock. More hands go up, always, when I ask that. How many of you, you don't have to raise your hand, you might not want to admit it, but how many of you will check either before you fall asleep or before you get out of bed in the morning? We'll check your email, we'll check Facebook, we'll check one of your social feeds. A lot of hands will. We all have a problem. But I'm not solving that today. Today, the way to the consumer's heart is not through their stomach, but it's through their feed. What we are consuming today in our feed is all different things. It's high and low. I call it nutritious and delicious content. But we expect to see it all jumbled together. The picture of our niece and nephews, what somebody had for breakfast next to the latest piece of news coming out of Syria. We're consuming content differently. And we're getting there by these. The tracks are already laid. There are amazing social networks out there. This is how people are coming to the content. In bed, apparently. The history of shareable content online has moved, right? Do people remember your aim away message, your status? That was really important, what you were going to say. Mom needs a computer, I'll be right back. Friends, you had to create this testimonial about yourself, like explain why you were so great, people should follow you. We went to the bulletin board, model on MySpace. The early days of Facebook, it was about you. It was about your profile, what you said about yourself. Twitter, who knows? Especially the early days, what is it? Then we came to a point where it was about what we ate for breakfast. And then just simply about taking pictures of ourselves. But it all changed. And I think it all changed with this event. The Arab Spring, in my estimate, I advise a politician on foreign policy. I'm not going to get too detailed into this, but it was neither Arab nor Spring when it started, but that's a totally different story. But it was this event, the events in the Middle East and North Africa, where people started to share more serious content. It was not just about what you had for breakfast. It was not just about a joke. You would all of a sudden see in your feed someone having a voice, someone having an opinion on what was happening. It was a turning point, a seminal moment in the sharing of content. Basset hounds running. I don't think anybody here woke up this morning and said, you know what I need to see today? I'm going to come to Chicago Ideas Week. I'm going to hear some really interesting people, but I really want to see what basset hounds running look like. If you did, we should talk. There's probably a job for you at Buzzfeed. But when you see this come across your Facebook wall, you can't help but smile or laugh. And if you don't, you're not human. This is funny. It's as important to see what's going on in the Middle East as it is to see basset hounds running, because we're human. Now, here's where the nerd in me comes out a little bit, and for any marketers or agency people in the room, it's vital to understand the train tracks, how different content spreads across different platforms. Facebook could take a day, 2, 3, 4, possibly even a week for content to start to share, but it could last for 3, 4 weeks on the back, because Facebook is not about timeliness necessarily. Twitter certainly is. Somebody tweets something, they have a lot of followers, that gets retweeted. But as quickly as it rises, it will continue to fall. You don't want to be the 5,000th person to retweet something. That's not what Twitter is about. Pinterest, who knows? Pinterest could take 6 months to start driving traffic to you, but it could last for 2 years. These are vital and really important things to understand how the tracks are different and how the content that you're creating will travel differently across them. So what do they want? What do consumers want? This is the part of the presentation where you want to take out your pens, your pencils, your iPads, and take some notes, because this is interesting. You know what? We're asking the wrong questions. It's not what they want. It's what we want. From a marketing and advertising perspective, we don't often consider ourselves the consumer. We never ask ourselves, would I share this? Is this a piece of content that I'm creating for a brand? Is this interesting? Would I find it interesting? More importantly, would my friends find it interesting? Let's start there. Ask yourself, is this something you would share yourself? So some of the keys to creating shareable, interesting content that will spread and travel across the social web. Have a heart. You're more likely to share uplifting content than you are negative content. An incredible story of a veteran who came back from a war, lost both legs and both arms. We highlighted his progression and rehabilitation that he did with his fiancée leading up to their wedding day. This is content people want to share, people want to engage with. Content is about identity. What's wrong with this picture? Anybody know? 10% of us should know. 70s, that is true. That might be true, although that's not what's wrong with it. Yes, no left-handed desk. Who's left-handed in here? It's a smart group. Left-handed, the research bears this out. Left-handers are actually smarter than right-handed people. Not my research, it's the research that's done. 4 of the last 5 US presidents have been left-handed. You can guess who wasn't. Content is about identity. We also die younger, incidentally, so it's not all roses for us. Content is about identity. This is what I had to deal with in university. All right-handed desks. When there's a piece of content that's about left-handed people, you know what? My friends send it to me. I send it to my father because he's left-handed too. It's about identity. It's what makes us unique. Humor. I love when I don't read it. Everyone thinks I'm going to read it. When I don't, everyone goes, this printer is now called Bob Marley because it's always jamming. That's just funny, right? Humor works across the social web. Nostalgia does too. We have an entire vertical at Buzzfeed that's dedicated, it's called Rewind, dedicated to growing up in the 80s and 90s, way back when. What do you remember when you came home from 4th grade in 1992? What TV shows did you watch? What games were you playing with? This is something people resonate with. If we all close our eyes for a second and think of the smell of Play-Doh, the stuff you play with as a kid, not the Greek guy, he probably didn't smell that good. We're instantly transported, brought back to a different time. Nostalgia works. Enough said, I don't really need to go into this. If you want to understand the social web, look at cats. It's not a joke, it's not intended to be funny. Seriously, look at cats. That is very telling about how the social web works. I'm a dog person, that's Boo the dog. Cute animals deserve respect. Don't ignore mobile. If it doesn't work on mobile, it won't share, it won't spread. 50% of our traffic comes from mobile, and I think you're going to see that number wherever you are rise. Think about what you do at 8:30 in the morning at your favorite coffee shop when you're the 12th person in line for the latte. What do? You take out your phone. I've done this informal study in about 10 countries around the world. Every single place does it. They all take out their phones. Don't ignore mobile when you want to create shareable content. Content is king, distribution is queen, and she wears the pants. Let's start from a point where you have to create great content. But that is not enough. Understand how and where it will travel across the social web, and you'll understand the consumer. Thank you very much.